Hi, and welcome everybody. My name is Melanie Dizon. I'm the Director of Education for the Davis Phinney Foundation, and today I am here with David Leventhal to talk about living well with Parkinson's through dance and movement. For those of you who don't know or are not familiar with David, he's a board member of the Davis Phinney Foundation and is the founding teacher and program director for Dance for PD. He leads classes for people with Parkinson's around the world and trains other teachers in the Dance for PD approach. David received the 2016 World Parkinson Congress Award for Distinguished Contribution to the Parkinson's Community and was a co-recipient of the 2013 Alan Bonander Humanitarian Award from the Parkinson's Unity Walk. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Melanie. It's wonderful to be with you and to share what we do with everyone on the call. So thanks for hosting.
We're excited. David, let's jump in. Let's see. David, I took a ballet class with your wife this morning. Excited to join. Hi, Jennifer. That's awesome.
We are a dancing family for sure, which is why I'm coming to you live from the Mark Morris Dance Center, which is officially closed to the public, but it's a quiet space where I could speak today. So, because my wife is still dancing at home.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, David, can you tell us a little bit about the history of Dance for Parkinson's and your involvement with it?
Sure. We started working with people living with Parkinson's in 2001, so 19 years ago, which is hard to believe. And really, the initiative or the idea came from the community. It came from one person in particular, named Ole Westheimer. And Ole, who's a visionary, had a Parkinson's support group in Brooklyn that she'd been facilitating for about a year. And in those meetings, once a month, she heard the stories of people in that group. And the stories were that their lives had become kind of embedded fully with the world of Parkinson's, with medication schedules, with doctor's visits, with therapy, with this sense that they were permanently medicalized, right? That their identity had shifted from husband, mother, son, whatever their identity was, lawyer, into I am a Parkinson's patient. And she was shocked by this. She didn't have a medical background. She was coming in more from social work background, but she realized that the support group structure alone was not enough to sustain the quality of life and sense of identity that she knew members of this group had and wanted to have, but somehow they felt completely locked into their challenges. So she started thinking about ways that people in the group could engage with each other in other ways and to really leave Parkinson's outside for a while. Not that it's going to go away, but to have a different vantage point on themselves. And she had a dance background. She'd studied ballet as a young person, and she started thinking about all the things that happen in a dance class. First and foremost, she realized that the dance experience was a social experience. Right? Although we all maybe privately dance in our living rooms and sing in the shower, most arts activities, except maybe for painting and writing, are communal. There's a communal activity, particularly dance, because dance, of course, has evolved over the centuries and millennia as a community ritual. It's something that communities do together to celebrate, to tell stories, to mourn, right? Movement as a process, a ritual process. So it's very natural then to see a dance class as a way of creating a socially engaged space, a socially interactive space. So that's part of it, right? And that was the part where she felt like people could really escape their Parkinson's through dance. But the other side of the sword is that everything that dancers do in their training, in their practice, in their rehearsal, and in their performance happens to be incredibly useful for people living with Parkinson's. And I want to cover a lot of that today, and you're all actually going to get to experience some of that because we're going to be doing some dancing together. So you'll get to see what those elements are. So when Ole proposed this idea to us here at the Mark Morris Dance Group, we said yes, but we don't have any experience working with people with Parkinson's. And Ole said, and this has really been a principle of the program from the start, she said that's a benefit. because there's so much that's geared towards sort of symptoms and challenges. People in my group want to feel like dancers. They want to think like dancers. They want to express themselves like dancers. They don't want the word Parkinson's in the room. And it's perfect, therefore, that you are a professional dance company, because people coming in will be treated like dancers, and that's what I want. And that's how we started. We started with 6 people. I taught the first class. I had no idea what I was doing. I had a couple pointers. And from that first class in October of 2001, the program has grown to, before we suspended live classes, to 9 classes around New York City and a network of more than 300 classes in 25 countries. So there clearly was in Oli's kernel of an idea, a niche to be filled, right? And this idea that people living with Parkinson's deserve to have creative, arts-focused, expressive physical activities. Put all that together and you have dance.
Wow, that is great. I want to talk about, you said so many different things that I want to touch on around symptoms and why people want to dance. But can you speak a little bit about what it means to have the mind of a dancer?
Sure. So in many ways, what dancers have to do is very similar to what people with Parkinson's have to deal with. So as a dancer, you are training your body every day to approach challenging movement, right? When you're a professional dancer, when I was dancing with Mark Morris, Mark would come up with phrases of movement, and you just have to learn it and kind of absorb it into your body and make it your own. And I found that very difficult. I move very differently than Mark does, and so it was always a struggle.
Can you talk, before you go on, can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that? What does that mean? You move differently than he did.
Well, we have different bodies. He's like 6'2" and big guy, and I have a different training and background. And when a choreographer comes up with movement, it's not like a composer. A composer has the neutrality of the note. Composer writes a note on the page. That note is interpreted by the musician, and any musician with training can interpret that note as the composer probably intends it. In dance, you're dealing with choreographers' physical uniqueness, right? They move in a way that nobody else moves. And so in a company where there's one choreographer and 18 dancers, which is our company, you have that, there's a disconnect between Mark and what he can do and what all the dancers can do. It's not that we don't have training and skills, it's that we are not him. So that's the frustration of being a choreographer, is you want 18 of yourself in a way, because you know that you can do the movement, but we don't have that. So you have to rely on your dancers to be your palette, to be your colors, to be your textures, to be your notes. And so there's a lot of translation that has to happen. It's like, you know what, I have trouble doing that with my body. Let me figure out a way to do that. Does that sound familiar to anybody in this call? Yeah, it's kind of like when you're living with Parkinson's, life is the choreographer. Life throws you challenges, and you have to use the tools of a dancer to try to figure out some ways through that. And so what are some of those tools? And what are some of the tools that I use in the studio? Well, the first one is imagery. If there was a movement that I had trouble with, I tried to think of an image that would support my movement. So instead of just like lifting the arm or doing something really complicated, I would think, well, let me think about this as a wave of water. And that not only helps me find the quality of that movement, but it helps me remember the movement. So sometimes we have to remember really long chains of information, and by putting images and telling a story with my movement, I'm able to remember it more easily, and I understand the quality of it. So it's not about the mechanics, it's really about the how. And that's something I talk a lot about in the Dance for PD experience, because the how to us as dancers is as important as the what. So it's not just lifting your arms 5 times, it's how are you lifting your arms? Because when you ask how, it engages our brain in a different way, right? It's not just rote memorization, it's actually engaging with what you're trying to do and thinking about how you're expressing that movement through your body. And so it's a much tighter connection between the mind and the body. Imagery is one. Music is a huge one. So finding a musical structure, a rhythmic structure to the movement is really, really helpful. Thinking about directions. So understanding, if I'm moving over here, how can I use my focus? That's where I'm looking to really guide my own body in directions. A lot of times we're following movement, we're just following the teacher, right? We're not really using our eyes to connect with what we're doing. And then things like practicing, and actually like having a daily ritual of movement in your life. Thinking about specific challenges that you have as someone living with Parkinson's, think about those challenges choreographically. What I mean by that is, instead of saying, well, I can't do that, a choreographer says, this is a problem to solve. This is a puzzle to solve. How can I choreograph my way out of this issue? So to tell a story that I often refer back to, a friend and someone who took dance for PT classes in California named Herb told me this story. He'd been taking dance classes for a few months, and he was in the grocery store, and he started to freeze. He started to have a freezing episode, and he started to think back to the class, and he thought about some of the movement they did, but more specifically the way that the teacher described the choreography as a path, as a roadmap. And so instead of panicking about not being able to walk forward, he put on the mind of a dancer, said, I'm going to think about this as a choreographed dance. And what am I going to do? What am I going to plan? Let me take 8 steps side to side. Let me think about a waltz. And he was able to start moving because he changed his mindset. So that comes directly out of the experience of being in a studio, and that is such a useful skill for anybody really to implement in their daily lives.
Yeah, it sounds like, in one respect, really freeing for I mean, anybody walking into a dance studio that's not familiar with dance. People with Parkinson's, really freeing. You don't have to be a dancer to come in. You don't have to look like the instructor. You don't have to look like anybody in your class. You just have to interpret it in the way that feels right for you, for where you are in that moment. So that's a really great thing, to kind of keep going back to that. I love that mind of a dancer piece.
It's a really important point. And that's the thing, when you're talking about the how, it doesn't matter how high you're lifting your arm or how many of each thing you're doing, how many repetitions, because again, even if you are dealing with more intense challenges, you're still thinking about the quality of that movement, and that's what's really important. And that gives people confidence through the full spectrum of Parkinson's. That's why we have people in our class at all stages, because you can still come at the more advanced stages and you can really have a sense of satisfaction that you are moving as a dancer, even though you may not be doing it as quickly or with the same range of motion as somebody across the room from you. But it's very democratic in that way, and everybody has access to thinking creatively and qualitatively about their movement.
Great. So what are some of the benefits for people that come to class? And this can be, social, emotional, but it can also be, what are symptoms that people often say are, wow, this is better, that kind of thing.
Right. This is such a great question, and it's something that is both easy to answer and really difficult to answer. The reason it's easy is that there are actually more, I just counted, there are now 39 peer-reviewed studies on the impact of dance on people living with Parkinson's. That's through a range of different styles. About 9 of those are specifically on the dance for PD model. Others are based on movement, dance styles like tango, contact improvisation, tap, and a whole number of other things. So there's quite a good research literature to back us up. But the problem is that research generalizes. And as artists, we see each individual as a unique, special person in that class with their own skills, their own gifts, and their own challenges. So everybody is coming in with different objectives and different needs, and so they all see the class through different lenses and experience different benefits. And that's actually really important, because I don't think in Parkinson's we don't necessarily want to try to standardize benefits. We want everybody to be able to come in and find their own path in a way that benefits them. One of the great things, though, about dance is that it is multifocal. And I'm going to actually bring up a little slide here that tries to make this point in a very simple graphic. So one of the things we talk a lot about kind of the physical aspects of dance, but the thing is that that's just one of 4 elements that I think are really critical. Um, and we do focus a lot on the physical because dance is a movement form. We focus on dance technique. But it is the tip of the iceberg. And that's actually one of the challenges of Parkinson's is that often it is thought of only kind of as a movement disorder. But actually, these other areas of cognition, emotional health, and I put expression in there, and social health are also critically important. And in some cases, as important as the physical. And I would say from all of these four parts, what you're getting is yourself, right? You, as a unique human being, are at the middle of that Venn diagram, and your identity is composed of those different elements. Yes, you are a physical being. You have a body that moves. You are an emotional being. You want to express yourself. You are cognitive. You think, you process, you mirror, all of those things we do in our head. And then, of course, we are social beings, even now when we're all on Zoom. So it's those four elements coming together that I think make dance such a unique experience and allow you to benefit in a way that allows you to get the most out of it for yourself. But that said, let me go through a couple of things. So what I hear people say is a lot of people find that they feel more balanced in the class. They're able to really work on what I would call functional balance, which is just not just standing on 2 feet, but actually using weight shift, going off center and coming back to center, and really feeling that balance is a dynamic, ongoing awareness rather than like the perfect platonic idea of what balance is, right? We're constantly negotiating balance at all stages. I hear people talk a lot about how it helps them entrain to music. So sometimes people say, with Parkinson's, I feel like I've lost my internal music and rhythm. Oliver Sacks talked about this famously in his book Awakenings, where he talks about one of his patients using the term unmusicked to describe her state off of levodopa. This is, of course, early stages of levodopa use in the 60s. And she says, I feel unmusicked. Now, she's not living with Parkinson's, but there are similar sort of parallels to what our participants experience. And this class is so based on music and rhythm that it helps people really gain confidence in how to listen to music, how to use music as a tool, and then, of course, how to use music in their daily life. So a lot of people after this class will go out and they find music they really like, and they'll use that to help them maintain walking speed, constant walking speed, helps them get out of freezes if they have music they find particularly inspiring. So it's a really useful tool. I also have people tell me that it is a social lifeline for them, that otherwise they are cut off, they feel very isolated, and they feel very awkward in public. People tell me that publicly. It's like, I don't feel comfortable going out in public, but in this class, because everybody is living with Parkinson's and has some of the same challenges, I feel completely comfortable here. And I love that. I feel like here, I don't have to explain anything to anybody. And that's a remarkable freedom. And that allows, I think, people to be able to express themselves and to find a fuller range of motion than they might in other movement experiences. And I guess that's another part of it. I would say confidence. Confidence and expressive potential, right? I think of Parkinson's as an anti-theatrical condition. What I mean by that is it kind of takes away, as my friend Dave Iverson would say, Parkinson's is a disease of subtraction. It starts to take away. And one of the things it takes away is the opportunity or the confidence you have in expressing yourself, using your face, using your voice, using your body to express ideas. In the dance class, because it is such a safe space for people, we give them a chance to express ideas through their bodies. We use our voice. We encourage people to use their faces, so they really feel that they're performing. That's the other kind of think like a dancer element that I think is so critical, is what is it like to be on stage? Because when you're on stage, you have to make everything appear bigger than in real life. If you're just moving like this, the people in the balcony won't be able to see you. So you have to exaggerate and move as big as you can. And that's a really great way of thinking if you're living with Parkinson's, as movements become smaller and more constrained, to think about pushing beyond the fourth wall, as we call it in theater, and really projecting your movements to the back of the audience. And I know a lot of you work on that already through things like loud and big, right? And so that idea of big amplitude and projection is really critical. And that is another benefit, right? Because people say, wow, I feel so much more comfortable in my body, so much more confident, and I'm able to plan my movements more. I'm able to think like a choreographer. I'm able to go from A to B to C in an organized way because that's how we do it in class. And so when I'm struggling with something at home, I can go right back to that roadmap. What we've seen in kind of the hardcore scientific research, most of that has focused on the motor skills. We've seen significant statistical improvements in gait, in amplitude, in reduction of tremor. There's a recent study that just came out on cognitive skills and increase in things like executive function, which was not a surprise to us because dance is first and foremost a mental activity, right? It is mind over body, but we wanted to see some research on it, and that is now starting to come out as well. There's a little less research on the quality of life issues like social interaction, confidence, and mood, depression, but we are starting to see those as well. But there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to support that. So we were, in some ways, happier to see the motor skills because I think that's what neurologists are looking at first. It's like, does dance really make a difference in the motor skills? And the answer is, in all of those studies, yes. So that's very positive.
Great. So speaking of anecdotal evidence, I would love it if we could get some comments from people in the chat. What would you say have been your biggest wins from going, if you go to Dance for PD or you just dance on your own? What are some things, benefits that you get from the Dance for PD classes or dancing classes, whether that's like social, emotional, cognitive, or a motor symptom? Let us know. I want to read some off.
Absolutely. And maybe this is actually a good time to do a little experiment of our own,
Joy.
right? We can do a little, joy is a good one.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do an experiment and then we can.
So, because I realize there might be some people in our audience who actually haven't been in a class. So I thought I'd actually do a little short movement experience with you, and then you can let me know how it feels. And if you don't enjoy it, that's okay too. There's no pressure. This is actually something I often do at the beginning of class, and it's really a way to get people in the sort of the idea of dancing, but sort of through the back door. I think in our culture, I'll just acknowledge this, in our culture, the word dance has some pretty, it makes people anxious for two sides, right? One is, I can't do that, I can't dance, I have two left feet, right? Those responses, it's somehow in the dance world, we have failed to let people know that dance is everybody's right. And everybody is born dancing. We all dance as kids. It's part of our life. In many cultures outside of the US, dance is a huge part of social interaction and community for all genders, right? But in this country, I think we have some, I'll be honest, we have some hang-ups on dance. It can be a scary word. So I'll often start with something that is, it's creative, but it's not dance related. So I actually want us to think for a moment that we are painters. We have a canvas all around us, and I'm going to just guide you through sort of a painting activity. And as we go through, you'll start to find that actually you're dancing, but don't tell anybody, okay? All right. So I'm going to put a little music on, and
I'm going to stop my video so you're bigger on the screen for people.
Okay, great. So just taking two paintbrushes for a moment, I want you to just trace those brushes. You can do one at a time if it's more comfortable for you. Start small. Really think about the line that you're creating. Following with your eyes. You can also think about the color that you're using. For me, it's orange, because I really like orange paint. When you're ready, bring in the other hand and really focusing on that second brush. Back just a little bit. And alternate hands, or you can start to move both together. Thinking about the quality of your brush stroke. Maybe it's scribble. Maybe it's really slow figure eights. Now I want you to change and think about little points of color, like Georges Seurat. Georges Seurat, pointillist painter, making little little dots. So I want you to find places on your canvas to add those little dots of color. Really specific. See it with your eye and drop that paint right on there. Again, you can change colors if you like. Beautiful. Now, thinking about actually smearing that paint on the canvas, we start to get a little bit bigger now. So really thinking about what that paint feels like in your fingers. Feel like in between your fingers. How can you create big, thick clouds of paint like these have been right? So really pressing that paint onto the canvas all around you. Don't forget that space behind you. Canvas goes all around. And now thinking about splattering that paint, so really releasing it from your hands. Thinking about Jackson Pollock, right? So really allowing that paint to fling off your fingers, pressing it out, let it be free. Don't worry, we will repaint your walls after this webinar. So
David, if you can turn your music down a teeny bit.
yeah, sure.
They can hear you, and the music's great. They just have a hard time hearing your voice.
Yeah, so really flinging that paint out. Is this better?
Now we can't hear the music.
Okay, let me go back up. Keep flinging, everybody. Let me go halfway, about there.
There you go.
Yeah, so really flinging, thinking about the path of that paint as you throw it through space. Beautiful. And now, thinking about giant brush strokes, kind of like Mark Rothko style, right? So a huge canvas, smearing, but very smooth now. So no texture at all, just really smooth strokes. Beautiful. Yeah. Big as you can. Now taking all of that paint, all of that color, and creating a little ball of paint. Pressing it into your hands. Pressing that in. And now allowing that ball of paint to expand into a huge explosion of color. Let it open. Let it open. Let it open. Right. Yeah, great.
That was fabulous.
Thanks for the sound check. It's hard to tell because what I'm hearing is so different from what you're hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
That is great. Yeah. Oh, actually, one thing good about COVID-19 is David's Monday morning class. He has become like an old friend. Actually, Dave, you have to tell the class. So before on Mondays, you used to have how many people, and now you have how many people in your class?
We generally have anywhere between 140 and 160 people in our Zoom class, and I know it might be hard for some folks to kind of imagine what that experience looks like on Zoom, particularly. Oops, sorry. So I have a little clip just to show you sort of what that looks like, and this is a clip that we did for a news report, so it's part of a news segment. But I'm just going to take a moment to share that with you. Just give me a second to set that up. We were amazed. So, right in our 9 classes throughout New York, we were noticing, generally the pool of people who took the class was around 600, 650. And then we went online. We started welcoming people from all over the U.S., from South America, from Europe. I had a couple people from Asia and Australia, even though the time zone does not work for them very well. So I'm just to give you like 30-second clip of what that Zoom class looks like if you haven't been in it. And again, this is just one screen of it. Let me just check one more thing on the share. I want to make sure that, okay, great. Make sure everything is lined up properly. Okay, you should be able to see the class, and I'm gonna push play here.
With director David Leventhal leading the class virtually.
Covering out long fingers.
We're getting worldwide people attending the dance classes. They called from Australia and New Zealand and England and South America, and they're all zooming in.
Do we know why it works?
So just wanted to share that with you so you get a sense of what that looks like. How do we dance on Zoom? There are some things we can't do. it's we can't touch, right? There's that physical contact that is so important to dancers and to people with Parkinson's is not there. But we imagine that we're touching. I ask people to press into my hands. I shake hands with them. So there's enough that we can kind of simulate to have that environment. And one of the great things about this format is that, and people have said this, they feel like they are dancing just with me because they put it on speaker view. And so it's like I'm just dancing with them in their living room. There isn't anyone else in class, which is, when you're in a group class, you're aware that there are many other people kind of there and maybe in your sight lines and getting in your way. And here it's just that unmediated experience. So
yeah, that's such a great point. You can just, if you're somebody that feels like a sensory overload and you don't want to see everybody else dancing, just put it on speaker view when you're there and you're like, wow, I'm getting a private dance instruction by David. Great.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know now how to get in your class. How can they get into your class? So everybody, we are going to share that information for sure in the show notes and in the email so that we can make sure that you all know how to do it. And all of the Dance for PD classes are free. And there are classes like David's, your center does 9 a week. And there are classes, from dance teachers all over the country. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities. I just want to talk, read some of the comments that people said. Some people, this is so amazing and offers freedom, joy, looseness, and freedom. Moves are a lot more rigid. I'm not sure what that one meant. Watching and dancing with David is joyful in and of itself. The music allows free movement. Also, memorizing routines is great. Yeah, that's a great cognitive load to go for. Exhilaration, Kevin. Hi, Kevin Kwok. How are you? Exhilaration.
Hey, Kevin.
He's always smiley and happy and passionate about what he does. Absolutely. That makes a huge difference. Dancing lifts my spirits. I love to dance, and Fear PD takes that away. Somebody said one great benefit is that with music, often your own muscle memory will kick in, even when your brain might not be able to get the message to move your muscles. The music and knowing whatever you can do is great. It definitely helps. So it's a great activity. Thanks for making it available to all. That's a great point.
Somebody brought up this issue of fluidity and rigidity. I think that's a really excellent and important point, particularly for people living with Parkinson's, that, in dance, we have many different qualities of movement, but the goal is to be able to move as one speaks in language, right? Dance is a language, just like English, Spanish, sign language, right? So these are all languages where fluency and fluidity are important for communication. And so just as in English, I'm trying to speak in sentences with punctuation and with stopping. Don't worry, I will stop speaking at some point. We do the same in dance. And so I find that, instead of saying, well, dance makes people more fluid, it helps people move in sentences with the sense of knowing what word or movement comes after the next thing, and really having both more confidence in that, but also a bit more automaticity, which is an important concept, because obviously for a number of our dancers, automatic movement is more challenging. So to start to get into a state where somebody said, that muscle memory, as we call it, muscle memory kicks in with the music and allows you to move through a sentence or a phrase of movement. That is so important and so powerful to experience. And it's very different. I mean, I'm going to do another activity with you, which takes some everyday movements from baseball, right, but puts them into a phrase and has us think about it. And this is quite different, say, from an activity you might do at a gym, which is based on quite a limited movement vocabulary, like right and left for half an hour, right? If you're on a treadmill, that's what you're doing. There's not a lot of, it's very good for you, and you should do it in addition to other things, but there's not a lot of movement variety, right? There's not focused on quality. You're not really focused on different rhythms. You're not focused on phrases. It's just the phrase is right, left, right, left. Right? It's a very short phrase. So we might do that, right, left, push, but then we're going to add other things, dot, dot. So we're creating a whole novel instead of a sentence.
Yeah. Somebody along those lines, somebody said, I constantly find movements I have trouble doing each day, but I can do them when I'm in dance for PD. So loss of use of left hand, fingers, that kind of thing. People can start to have more mobility during those classes. Let's see. That was fun. Bravo. That was awesome. Thanks. How can I get into this? Yeah, that was great. First time experience for my wife. I've never done this before, and I feel wild and free. Thank you so much. Bravo. First time dance. That's awesome. Okay, great. So David, do you want to do, before we get into a little bit more content, do you want to do another exercise?
Sure.
Everybody, we got those. Okay.
Yeah, and this time, I'm going to do a sound check first, just because every track is slightly different volume. So let me know. This one might be a little bit louder. So let's do a check first, and y'all could let me know how it sounds. Let me do share first, though. Okay. So this is perfect, because actually we were talking about this idea of sentences, right? Phrases, and we're going to play with that idea. And we're actually going to go forward and backwards with our sentence. We're going to do the alphabet backwards in a way. So here's the music. How does that sound for you? Loud. Is that better? Still too loud?
Everyone chime in, because I'm probably
not. Let me know. I want it to be comfortable, inspiring but comfortable.
So it sounds good. Do you want to?
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Great. So as you can hear, we're gonna be going to the ball game, and I want us to imagine that we're gonna do a few different roles. So the first is gonna be catcher, and I'm doing this because I think it's really important for us to realize that dance is not necessarily about a set vocabulary of, whether it's from ballet or tap or modern or flamenco or West African. It's a mindset. You can take any movement and make it dance, because we're doing it consciously, we're thinking about it creatively, we're using music, and most importantly, we're trying to express something. So dance is really about physical expression. How can I express an idea or an emotion or a story through my movements? So we're going to be the catcher, and you can use whatever made-up symbols, or if you actually know baseball, you can use whatever symbols you want for the pitcher. Then you're going to be the pitcher. So you're going to throw. We did this earlier with our Jackson Pollock, but now you're throwing a bit more of a ball. Then magically you transform into the batter. So I really want you to be aware of what that swing looks like. A little bit of a twist, and of course you can do the seated as well. Same thing on the other side. You're going to run as fast as you can to first base, and then you're going to slide. Okay? Now if you're seated, the slide is really quite straightforward. You're just going to kind of put your feet out like that. I know it's hard to see my feet, but you get the idea. So you're just sliding. If you're standing, take it easy and just step out. The slide is happening in your hands. We're going to do that twice. Then there's been an error, and actually you have to do a replay. So you're going to wind the tape backwards. We're going to slide backwards. We're going to imagine we're running backwards. We're going to grab that bat out of the air and pull it backwards. We're going to grab the pitch and pull it backwards. And then we're going to do our catcher signs. They're going to go up instead of down. That's the backwards. Okay? So I'm not going to talk anymore. We're going to do it all together. You're going to have fun. But I want you to think very specifically about this idea of phrasing, right? About this sentence that we're working through, and then the cognitive work of running it in reverse direction. All right. Here we go. 5, 6, here we go, and really throwing those symbols emphatically. And we're talking about projection, right? Pitching. Oh, really imagine the follow through. Same with your batting. Following through all of those movements. Swing and hit. Run, run, run. Ready to slide. See that sand picking up. One more time, other side. Any symbols you want, you can make it up. That looks like a good one. Rear back, throw that ball. Rear back, throw. Now with your back. Swing it. Good. swing. Ready to run? Any speed is comfortable for you. Slide it. Let's go backwards. So you're going to unslide. Imagine you're running backwards. So your hand comes in. Grab that bat out of the air. Grab it. Grab the pitch. Take it and pull it back right behind your ear. Good. Here are your cymbals. Let's try that one more time. Sliding from the other side. Sliding back. Running back. Grabbing that bat. Grabbing the pitch. Grabbing the pitch. I think we better have a big stadium wave all together. Throwing those arms up. Again. Big final wave all the way around the stadium. Watch it go. Whoa, good. All right, excellent. Now, before we get back to talking, I want to do something really interesting. At least I think it's interesting. So we have all this movement. Now I want you to think about it differently. We're going to do what we call in dance, and in music, an adagio. Adagio means slowly. So we're going to do each element just once, but it's going to be like molasses. And this is your opportunity to really get inside the movement, right? I know what we were doing kind of got us moving. It got that heart rate up. It was good in terms of big movements and all that. But now we're going to really fine tune it. I want you to think about every single millisecond of this movement and make it as beautiful as you can. This is something that baseball players don't think about at all. They're just there to win and to hit. But we as dancers are trying to make this look really good. All right? So really think about every angle and every moment in that slow motion. Okay? We're going to try this once. It's just a minute, and then we'll come back to chatting a bit more. All right. I'm going to turn this up just a tiny bit. Here we go. Big swing. Running slowly. And ready for a nice beautiful slide. Other side. Really enjoy that one symbol that you need. One signal. Thinking about that beautiful fluidity. Keep it moving, keep it flowing. Follow that ball with your eyes. Running. And a big slide, reaching. Yeah, great. All right, so that's, I think, a really helpful example of how we take a movement vocabulary or a phrase and we put it through many different filters. And what you do when you do that as a dancer is you really have to think and be aware of every moment. You have to be fully conscious of every inch of your skin, right? What does that feel like? What is the quality? And how am I expressing? So yeah, Tai Chi is also very much like this idea of, really being aware of every second where that body is and how you are related to yourself, right? So it's not just like, we're not just throwing movement away, we're valuing every second. And that's such an important component of living with Parkinson's, is valuing your body and really getting back to that connection between your thinking mind and your moving body.
Yeah, that's great. So in these two different examples that you gave, you're calling out and you're telling people what to do. Is that what happens during the whole class? Are there different modes of dance that you try during different classes? That's some of the questions people are asking. Like, what types of dance are done at Dance for PD?
Great question. So almost all of our teaching artists balance between what I would call structured movement, which is what we've been doing today, and improvised movement, which actually the first activity was more of an improvised dance where you could have followed me, and it's actually on Zoom, it's sometimes people just fall into following, and that's totally fine. But we will, for the improv, I'll usually just give some cues and ideas and have people make up their own movements. I do that a little bit less with a beginning group or people I can't see because it can be a bit more intimidating, I think, to say, okay, you're going to do your own dance. I've never done a dance class before. So, but I do try to find a balance of, structured things where we're learning a sequence and then doing it together versus I'm giving a couple of cues and then you're making up your material. And I think both are really important. The structured dance will give you that kind of repeated cognitive structure of actually learning something, remembering it, and having to then work on it and make it more comfortable. And the improvised structure is more like a lot of life where you don't know what's being thrown at you and you have to come up with some movement to respond to it, or to work out some kind of problem that's been created by the choreographer. So I think they're both really important life skills, and so we work on both. And there's been research on the importance of both. So there's been some research on folk dance, which, as you know, is quite structured, right? You take 8 steps in this direction, 8 steps in that direction. There's been some really good cognitive improvements based on that, and also on some of the improvisation, like Argentine tango is almost entirely improvised. And in that mediation, you really have to find and incorporate balance awareness every second, because you never know where your partner is going to lead you. In terms of styles, it really is up to the individual teacher. So dance for PD is more about the method and approach and structure of a class, and a little less about the content itself. Right now, because my background is more in modern dance and ballet and some improvisation, that's where I tend to come in. We have other teachers who are really much more musical theater and tap based. We have others who are bringing in classes from the African diaspora, bringing classes, movement from Haiti, from Senegal, from West Africa, and bringing in some wonderful narrative movement from those cultures. We have a program in India, and it's so interesting. I use this as an example a lot because for me, the dance for PD experience, whether it's here or in South Africa, I see a participant here from South Africa, or India, or China, or Japan, the class has to be culturally specific, right? We are not interested, and in fact, we oppose anything that kind of imposes one particular style of dance on other people who are not used to that style culturally. And so it's very important that we train teachers locally who understand our methodology and approach, and then bring in their own cultural content. So in India, we had a teacher who came and trained with us and really understood this principle. And she, instead of doing tap, modern jazz and ballet, she does her warm-up using Kathak and Bharatanatyam, which are 2 classical Indian forms that are essentially the same in what they do, which is to create a vocabulary of technical elements and different ways of using the foot and arm. It's very rhythmic, and it's very focused on building motor skills, right? And it's a progressive warm-up. So exactly the same. And then she said, well, you often will do like a Broadway number at the end of your class. That doesn't work for us because we don't know those shows, but everybody here knows Bollywood. So we're going to do a Bollywood number at the end of our class. So their class is like Kathak and Bharatanatyam and Bollywood, and our class is tap, jazz, ballet, modern, and Broadway. So it's parallel, and if you went into that class, you would recognize it as a dance repeated class, but it's very specific to what that teacher knows and what the participants want to do. And of course, music is such a big part of the program, and so the music has to be music that's culturally specific. This is what I found teaching in China. You know, I really had to consult with people and think hard about what are people going to connect with? Because music is such an instantaneous emotional spark, right? We respond to music emotionally, but we tend to respond to music we know and that we're familiar with culturally. So going to China, I had to think really hard about, okay, I can't just use West Side Story. I mean, maybe I can, but how do I do that in a way that is sensitive and is really thinking about what Chinese people living with Parkinson's are going to want to move to. So it's some challenges, but
Great.
yeah.
So what can people expect? Right now, everything is online, but what can somebody expect if they're going to go online or in person at their very first Dance for PD class? Some people want to do it, they're nervous. What shoes do they wear? Do they wear shoes? Like what should they expect on those first days?
Well, for the online experience, all of our classes are hosted, which means that there is somebody there to greet you when you come in, to help you with any technical issues you have. One of the really powerful things about being on Zoom is you can choose your level of participation and privacy. We have had, and Mel, I'm sure you see this in your work, we have people who come in and they say, you know what, I really want to take your class, but I'm not sure I want to be in a class with other people. I don't want to be seen, or I don't necessarily want to see what other people with Parkinson's are going through, because maybe they're newly diagnosed and they have certain preconceptions about what that is. And I do try to talk them down and say everybody here is welcome, and it's all part of a journey, and everybody experiences different things. But whatever, when you're on Zoom, you have the choice of turning off your camera. You can participate completely privately if it's your first class, and that's fine with us. I mean, we do like seeing you, we like dancing with you, but that's fine. And you can also spotlight the teacher if you don't want to be aware of anyone else in the room. You just spotlight that teacher or pin the teacher, and you can just have a one-on-one relationship with the teacher. In terms of clothing, it's really you're at home, so whatever you're most comfortable in. We do encourage you to wear shoes that you find supportive. That's true whether you're in the studio or not. We generally recommend that people not wear socks if you're on a really slippery floor, like a wood floor. But otherwise at home, you can be on a carpet and it's fine. I would say what we do on Zoom is a little bit simpler, just because we can't really control the home environment. So we're not going to ask you to do huge slides across the floor because we just don't know what your space is like. When you're coming to the studio here, it's really the same. I think people have a better experience really articulating through their feet if they are not wearing street shoes. But of course, if you are more comfortable with street shoes, it's fine for you to wear those shoes. Whatever works for you. So we try not to have a lot of rules about what people can and can't do.
Great.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people, something new, they just want to.
Yeah.
I have a good sense of what's going to be.
In terms of your first class, come in, and I always say, come in and do what feels right to you. There's no test at the end. There are no judges. It's not so you think you can dance. It's just for you. So whatever you get out of it is great. And what you're going to find is a really welcoming, lovely, warm community there to encourage you and to be there if you want. We do have time at the beginning of class to connect and chat. Kibitz, as we say here in Brooklyn, and we also have time at the end of class. So at the end, class is about 45 minutes. Mine's usually longer because I talk a lot, and then we have about 20 minutes at the end for breakout groups. So we'll use the Zoom breakout room feature, and that allows people to be in a room of 5 or 6 people to chat and just share experiences related to dance or not related to dance, and that's really a nice feature, because we realize that's what happens in the studio, right? After class, in any dance class around the world, after class, people talk and they say, "Hey, how's it going?" And, "Hey, that was a really fun class. You look great." And so we wanted to provide an opportunity for people to do that virtually as well.
That's great. We only have a couple minutes. This hour went by incredibly fast. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask David before he has to sign off? We will definitely send you the information about Dance for PD classes online and David's class, that kind of thing. Yes, this is a great thing for care partners to do with their person with Parkinson's, and the whole family. I mean, the whole family could get together and take these classes together, and what a great experience, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
It's one of the things we have a participant here, a couple here in Brooklyn, and his family, he's a man living with Parkinson's. His family is in Argentina, and she said, is it okay for them to join the Zoom class so that we can all dance together? I said, yes, that's perfect. And actually, there are a couple of families who all meet on Zoom and do the class together, even though they're all in different areas. So it's, family is a wonderful motivator, and so to be able to be on class with your loved ones is a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So people are asking, are classes going to remain online even after we get back to hopefully in person?
Yes, there's no going back now. We have been streaming classes for the last 3 years once a month. So that means that you can kind of join our class in Brooklyn, but we will continue the Zoom experience that's a bit more interactive than just a stream. We will continue that even after we come back to live classes. I think it's been such a positive addition to what we're able to share and offer that there's no going back to just keeping that resource to ourselves. So yes, we will be doing it. It may not be 5 days a week as we're doing it now, but it certainly will be available and will continue to be free. There's a question about starting at any time. Yes, except for a couple of special workshops, like right now we're doing a 4-class tap workshop, where it's helpful to come in and do all, but you don't have to. Our regular weekly classes, you can join at any time. They're really designed for people coming in for the first time or for the 80th time.
That's what makes it so great. There's no levels. There's no requirement to come in, right? That's excellent. Good. Well, I am so appreciative of you being here today, David. I could talk to you for hours about this topic, and I was doing all the dances in behind, and now I'm can't wait to do a class. It's super fun. So thank you so much for being here and for joining us, and thank you all. Financial cost, they're free. They're free. The classes are free. So yeah, check it out. Definitely, when we send you the link, go for it and try your first dance class, and I'm sure you'll be a believer.
I'll just mention one other thing. For some people say, well, I don't have good internet, or I have a family member who doesn't. And we also have videos, DVDs, and that kind of thing for people who want to do that. Those are not free. There's a little cost because those cost us quite a bit of money. But there is an option. We also have a phone option for people who really have no internet at all. So I know that's not anyone on this call, but if you do know someone who's really cut off, check out our website, because that is another free option. You can call up and you can listen to, it's like dial 20 and you can get a beautiful 3-minute dance. So there are some other options. I don't want to, I just sort of focus on like the high-tech internet options, although those are wonderful too. So.
Oh, that's fair. That's great. That is such a great offer. And also, apparently, David for president. If you were for president, people would vote for you. I agree. I think it's great. Yes, I hope everybody takes advantage of the classes that Dance for PD offers. We will share that information for you. And if you have any questions at all, you can always email me at mdizon@dpf.org. I'm going to put that in there right there. I always forget. I always do it when I'm saying it, and then I forget and don't have time to get it. So thank you, everybody, and we will be in touch soon. The recording will be sent out in the next few days.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Mel.